credits panel before. All right, so, well, good lord. That, one, you're all awesome, and two, that means that most of you know that after this ends, for the next infinite hours...
It doesn't end.
It does not end. So just in case, I will say it at front, we are going to Mage's Forum after this to hang out and continue the conversation. So with that, I will leave it to, what are you? Yes, all yours. I'm gonna sit back and enjoy my tea.
Okay. Welcome to the MAGFest Extra Credits panel.
Dude, they cheer every time we do that. We should just do that for like an hour straight and we're done.
Welcome to the MAGFest Extra Credits panel.
Okay.
Welcome to the MAGFest Extra Credits panel. I'm not doing that again. Welcome to the MAGFest 2017 Extra Credits panel. It's 2018. You fell for it. All right.
All right. So, all you, I was just going to say that we have a stranger who happened to wander up. We'll probably be calling people out of the crowds because we've got a bunch of friends who are experts in the games industry to help answer some of these questions. And one of them just happened to wander on stage early because they were late and didn't get the memo. No, you're awesome. I just like giving you a hard time in front of 100 some odd people. All right, now all you.
Okay. So I'm Scott. I'm the lead artist from Extra Credits. You know what I do. I've been with Extra Credits for a while.
You do the music, right?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm Scott Kiner.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
I also have a brother. Go ahead.
I'm Nick DeWitt. I work on Extra History.
I'm Belinda, and my job is changing people's hearts in the comments by doing moderation and community management stuff for Extra Credits. So.
I'm exceedingly pleased that community management got a standing ovation. That was excellent.
I assume you know what Extra Credits is? We play Sonic the Hedgehog and get angry. We have a sister channel called Game Grumps. Which one?
It's amazing that we failed to bring a single Dan. Like, the Dan percentage in the Extra Credits team is quite high.
We are bankrupt on Dans.
Danless.
Danless. Yeah.
Actually, the true tragedy is, through random events, if memory serves, Dan Prime was supposed to actually take this as like a vacation and go to Disneyland with his wife, and canceled because of all this madness. So, you know, but they are taking an excellent at-home vacation playing probably Sonic the Hedgehog.
Probably Sonic the Hedgehog, actually.
All right, so maybe it's not as good a vacation as I had at first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah! What about you? What do you want to add to this exciting panel?
All of my maps are perfect.
100%. And your flags.
Yeah.
Flags are double perfect.
Yes. You're the wrong ones.
No, history itself is wrong.
Belinda.
What am I doing?
Any words of wisdom you want to impart?
If you're gonna like contribute to the community of Extra Credits, like don't just like come in and start like being racist or sexist, please. Like just don't. I honestly don't understand why anyone would be a fan of the channel and not notice how many different types of people we draw in every video and then be like, wait, why is there Muslim people in here? It's like,
It's a very
sorry,
low
that's
bar.
just like, we care about inclusion and diversity, and so like, it always just baffles me that we get weird comments from people who are like very confused as to what we're about, and we're pretty about that. So.
I'm convinced it's the same 6 people who dislike every single video.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So, mostly tonight, as always, since our medium is interactive, so too should these things be, and your questions are far more important than anything we have to say, plus then we'd have to prepare if we actually were going to do anything else. So, Q&A time! Feel free to line up there, and I will continue saying words as people line up to give you time to line up, but I'm almost out of words, so, all right, awesome! Question 1.
Howdy. First for the audience, does anybody have any Dayquil? I'm like not feeling great. Dayquil. Oh, really? Oh, shit. God bless. Oh, wait. Can I, like, not swing?
Community together. Wow.
All right. Secondly, my question. Maybe I should just wait for this.
I need you to speak.
We do
right
have
into the
somewhere
mic.
between 7 and 9 hours. This is true.
Does anyone have a pair of scissors?
All right, if this is going to take time. Oh, my gosh.
Oh! Prepared!
God. This is off to a great start. Oh my God. Thank you. Holy shit. Oh my God. Oh, fuck. My bad.
Wow.
Thank you.
I do believe this is actually officially the best beginning.
All right. Moving on. So, given you've been doing the show and expanding to a small network over years, what steps have you done to improve your workflow?
Sleep less. So we've actually, I mean, you might be able to talk to you a little bit about art on the art side.
Sleep less.
So we have actually done some things like bring these guys on board full time. Dan is much more on the actual Dan is much more on the actual management side. I am trying to figure out how I write extra credits, extra history, stream, and do extra sci-fi now. We haven't solved that puzzle yet. So there are just too many interesting things to not do them. So right now it actually is, you know, small business. Everybody's working all the different hats all the time. What would you say on the art side, though? What have you guys done? Is there anything that you think stands out for workflow improvement?
I'm basically doing the same things when I started.
So, and my process is actually a mess because what will happen is I will become interested in topics, and then what will happen is Dan won't get anything from me, and then Dan will be like, hey, we need to get scripts in 2 weeks, and I'll have like 15 scripts that are about 75% done. I'll finish 10 of them, hand them to Dan, and then just vanish in a gift for the next 10 weeks. So it's good process.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You could hide in the wings if you want.
So I asked you this question last year, and you didn't have an answer. And it's fine if you still don't. But
All right.
extra credits and Walpole.
Wait. Oh, you mean the link between them?
Where's the link between extra credits and
So,
Walpole?
This is like sort of Ouroboros. This is one of those moments that is just tautologically true, right? Because Walpole, extra credits, because extra credits, Walpole.
Hello again. So I'm currently a game design student at George Mason, and one of the things... Nice.
This is an awesome audience. Can we get a cheer for Woo, Mason? All right.
Oh yeah, so one of the projects that I worked on last semester was a 10-page research paper on Ion Storm Interactive.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's weird. Oh yeah, I was wondering if there were any other interesting, like, game development stories or histories or things that you'd think are, like, worth looking into, like the development of games or anything.
So I will let you off the hook on this one. I was actually looking for some of the more weazened members of our crew, but sadly Sellers nor Peter Schmidt are here right now, otherwise I would drag them up. So in terms of other super interesting stories in the industry, I actually think the founding of EA and the first couple of years of EA are really interesting. Let me think. Okay, so this is me, but I think that the rise of EverQuest and the rise of the idea of MMOs is a really interesting story, especially because it comes from Variant 989, which actually just did like a soccer game before that, and so it's all super kludged. And one of my friends was one of the lead designers back on EverQuest in the day, and you'll find out stuff like, you know how we all use terms like AOE and DOT and all this stuff? Do you guys remember Prima strategy guides?
Yep.
All right, people willing to admit they're that old. Sweet, you're with me with the gray hairs. So what's totally crazy is this was like early 90s. He had a spreadsheet with character limits, and Prima was writing a strategy guide for EverQuest. And they write them and go, how many spells do you guys have? And my friend Jeff writes back, oh, we have about 200, somewhere between 200 and 250. And they never heard, right? Like games at the time had like 12 spells. So they were like, can you send us descriptions of these spells? And so he mails them his spreadsheet. And because of the character limits on spreadsheets at that time, he's abbreviated everything. So he has like dot, PPAOE, all this stuff. And they just print it. That's it. They just like print his spreadsheets verbatim. So that's actually where we get all these terms from, was his own like personal language for assembling these things. So if you're looking for some interesting stories, there's some really good ones about the beginnings of Sony Interactive.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Oh, also Sims Online. Sims Online is the very first thing that happened was a Nazi love submarine was built. So
Thank you very much.
thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you.
Hi. So I have a question about y'all did an episode on copyright a while back. So I wanted to ask a question not about the legal idea of copyright, but like where would y'all stand on the idea of your work being distributed on a principle level? Like where would you draw the line, and where would you say what are like your personal views on how people share your work?
Well, for me personally, I think we should all answer this. Especially since we're ad driven, I love people sharing it. I don't mind. I tell schools all the time, share it. I mean, and for schools especially, if you want to ad block, go nuts, right? I appreciate if you don't ad block because it helps employ everybody, but the only case, you know how Bruce Springsteen has to send a cease and desist to certain politicians every year because they use Born in the USA and fundamentally don't understand what it was actually about? Don't do that with our stuff, right? Like, don't support things which we clearly would think are evil, but beyond that, whatever, go nuts.
Yeah, pretty much. I have a lot of experience in making web content prior to Extra Credits. Making comics and such, and there is a lot of strong opinions about that. You know, taking images and uploading them and not crediting. I understand the reality of the internet. Not a fan of people doing that per se, but we're on we're on YouTube. That's not really a problem for us. I don't mind sharing. I'd prefer ad block be off. I personally don't use that at all.
I also don't. I actually, after becoming a creator, like I definitely decided that ad block, like we're getting stuff essentially for free by just watching 5 seconds of ads.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll do that.
That's me. I assume most of you use ad block, and I am not going to change your mind.
YouTube Red is great, right? Like. It helps creators. It's better, right? Like
yes.
We actually get more dollars per view from a YouTube Red viewer than we do from somebody watching the ads.
Yes, that is absolutely true. But you know, Don't exactly have a problem with re-uploading our stuff elsewhere. That could be a problem, but I don't think we've noticed that.
There's one instance where they tried to upload our entire catalog in China and advertise on it without the revenue going anywhere near us. And
All right.
that was a little bit awkward, but other than that. The only other thing I would add on my front is please don't edit it without our permission. Like, even if you're just like cutting it down or whatever to show in your classroom or whatever, just reach out. And touch base with us, because we do put a lot of, especially these, put a lot of work into delivering the content the way it's delivered, and
I think for the most part we do pretty all right with people chopping stuff up for classrooms and such, as long as you come to us about it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I'm basically in the same boat. Do you mean like with something like if you make like a birthday cake and you put our characters on it or something silly like that? Like that's like a way different thing than like burning everything on a DVD and selling it. Like it's like if you're just having fun for fun's sake, like I mean, go for it. Like send us a tweet.
Yeah, if you put our characters on a birthday cake, please send us photos.
So I recently completed, over like many months this year, I completed a big optimization project for most of our videos, where like I went back to all the old videos and updated the descriptions and changed the titles, or like, you know, just kind of made it like better for YouTube search. And we don't have YouTube Red as the Extra Credits channel, and so you can get sick very quickly of like having to watch ads just for like updating all of these titles and descriptions. So I actually use ad block like on our channel, just so that we don't have, just so that it's easier for me to like go through and I was the one who betrayed you, James, I'm sorry.
And on the other side, like, if you have any cool ideas for Extra Credits merch that you really want to do, that, again, just contact us, right? Like, on that front, I can't answer. That's not my particular branch of what we do. But, like, if that's something that you're passionate about and you're like, oh, I make whatever, just reach out to us. We're pretty accessible.
James Plushie.
100%, absolutely, do it. But only photorealistic. All right, thank you.
Hi. Last spring, I actually, thanks to the help of Belinda, I had a bit of an email exchange, created a video game development club at Salisbury University, SUNDs.
Nicely done.
Yeah, thank you. I'm starting to plan, as a busy president, I'm starting to plan our activities for the upcoming semester. And of course, we're not all computer science nerds. Like we've got business school people, we've got some like biology people, all like every single department I'm trying to get in. And since they don't know how to program, that kind of limits some of my abilities. So we focus on a lot of design, a lot of board game stuff. That being all said, what would be some suggestions any of you guys might have for other fun or cool design activities, aside from just showing them Extra Credits videos, because I could do that too.
So I have a bunch of design activities, but do you guys have any thoughts on like art practica?
I'm willing to bet that your artists have plenty of ideas, but not necessarily the experience per se to know if those ideas are valid. Where am I going with that? That'd be good.
Did you buy you some time?
No. I'm good. I mean, game jams are good for that.
I would suggest some game jams too.
Yeah. That is a good sink or swim. It's a very valuable experience. And I think artists that don't work on games have a very different perspective on what it means to be part of a production line. And same thing with like comics or anything else. It's one thing to do what you want, even with programming. And it's a completely different thing to work as a unit. So that is right on top of my head, a good thing to do. Artists making game icons and assets and backgrounds and concept art. That is a good way to get more people of that sort. Game jams are also good for people not necessarily good at design, managers. People that aren't necessarily creative but have people skills, want to be a part of games, know how to manage people. That is incredibly valuable, and it does not have enough discussion, in my opinion.
What are your goals with the club? What do you want to have happen out of it?
And here's my test to see if I know the mission statement. So in general, I made the club specifically to create an environment where people on campus, because there were enough students who wanted to make games, could come together and either learn about making games the same way, kind of like what Extra Credits did for me, and make a community where, if I have people in the art school who don't know how to program, there's a bunch of programmers here. If I have people in the business school who just know nothing about art or video game or programming, they can come and have that. So that's why I also reached out with her advice to our Muslim Student Association, our LGBTQ club, our biracial club, every single diverse club as well, to both bridge it diversity educationally and then also across cultures. I'm trying to create a community, but also create a space where people can make stuff, which is why we've leaned board games, because that's easier to do a quicker meeting and produce something than nothing about any kind of coding, let me teach you right now.
Yes.
So I have a lot of design exercises, but it sounds like you want to reach past designers and get people to understand how to work as teams, and you want to reach past simply people who are in the fields where they may have picked up some of the skills to build games. Yeah, that's a really interesting problem. I do like the game jams a lot. I think that board games are also good. If they do bigger games, limit people to 5-minute games. I mean, I would honestly say 5 minutes, flash, congregate, get it uploaded, and then have your business people, they can have the task of seeing how many views they can get for it, right? But just keep it simple, keep them small, keep them short, and then from there, just talk about the industry, right? Go read Gamma Sutra every day and have discussions about what's going on in the industry as well as actual games and making games, because I think that to bring everybody together and to understand the full range of what's happening, we have to also look at who's creating things and why. Yeah, awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And if you want any specific design exercises, we can talk after. And,
we will.
Yeah.
We will. Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a couple questions about Star Wars Battlefront 2. I know you guys are. I know you guys are going to be making a video soon, but
I like how it was patched after 10 years. The other one.
I've followed DICE since Bad Company 2, and I've been a big fan of a lot of their games. But this one was a severe disappointment for me. I feel for a lot of players, they felt like the progression system and just the systems in it felt unfair. Do you think that, my first question is, do you think they intentionally made it unfair to sell more loot boxes, compromising the integrity of the game? Or do you think it was just some kind of mistake that they've made?
That's a tough question I don't really know the answer to, because weirdly, if they were intentionally trying to, if they were doing anything with intentionality, they would have done it better. I hate to say it, but if they were trying to screw us, they would have done it better, right? So right, there are plenty of places where you go and you're like, oh, cool, loot boxes. Hey, look, I've got some new skins in Overwatch, right? I think there were a lot of mistakes. We sort of had a panel earlier talking about the $60 problem with games and what we can do to fit games within the budgets that we currently have at a price that's no longer realistic. Super short version. It was 2004 about that we started charging $6 for games. Games shouldn't actually be $60 anymore. That's actually kind of ludicrous. And so that's why we were cramming in all these ways, and we've been trying for about a half decade with DLC and season passes and all this stuff to figure out ways to get more dollars from you. I think their use of loot boxes was just incredibly poor across the board, and in some ways that were manipulative and abusive, but in like a completely ham-handed way. And so do I think they set out to be as evil as humanly possible? No, I think they were actually so disconnected from their audience that they didn't think about their audience, right? I think they just thought, oh, I will put in this system for monetization and it will result in these dollars, and they saw their audience sort of as money robots. And then they realized that they weren't, and it was bad for literally everyone.
Right. My second question is, I spent some time on the forum. About a month ago, they posted a 1-in-1, and they said that the answers would be ready soon. We haven't heard any news, anything, for about a month. What do you think is the likelihood that they're just trying to sweep it under the rug and that they're not going to put any money or funds into further development for it?
I will let all of you guys speculate on that one because I actually have no clue.
I would assume very likely, to be honest. It's a very, I don't know PR well enough to like fully commit to that, but they also know that people are watching them like hawks, and their last PR bomb was someone politely, like probably didn't even work on the game, saying, we want you to feel like you accomplished something. That's why it takes all of these hours. Please buy our loot boxes. And then you saw the downvotes on Reddit. I don't know that they could say anything at this point that wouldn't be perceived as incredibly poorly, even if it was the correct thing to say.
Yeah, the community teams for games, like this is definitely not true for every game or every studio, but like I've definitely heard horror stories from many community managers who basically get like, they basically get the worst of it because they basically have to be the spokesperson and for like the dev team, and there's actually not always great communication between the PR and the community management people and the dev team. And so sometimes like you end up saying stuff and then like it ends up like not being true later, and you're just like, oh crap, like you feel like you lied to people, but you weren't trying to. It just kind of turned out that way because of poor communication issues within the team itself. So that actually does happen quite a bit, unfortunately.
I think the one thing that they could say is they could just release patch notes which says Han can never shoot before someone shoots at Han. Yes. Perfect. Did you have anything you wanted to add, by the way? Yeah. Do you want to be lured up here or no?
Only, I mean, if it's relevant.
I think there's something relevant, and I think that there's some value in talking about the possible ramifications of the fallout of this, in terms of what happens if we say loot boxes have a monetary real-world value. Cool, yeah. No, it's great. Come sit. We love you. Woo! And in the meantime, I will do a speculate. So my guess, so Disney, like literally the head of Disney got on the phone with the head of EA the day all that came out, and I think what they said was, you're giving us bad PR for our thing that, like, our movie's coming out, this is our huge license. Fix it, or we're pulling the Star Wars license, which would be disastrous for them. So while they know we're watching them like hawks, I think they're equally worried about Disney watching them like hawks.
Okay, so I should probably introduce myself because nobody knows who I am. So hi everybody, my name is Joe Newman. So I am currently, my role is senior legal counsel at Ubisoft. However, before September, I was privacy and consumer protection counsel at EA. So.
And anything like you can speak in big generalities?
I'm going to speak in total vague generalities. I'm not going to say anything about former employers, current employers, any of that stuff, not legal advice, all the usual disclaimers. I didn't work on Battlefront. I did review a lot of the marketing stuff, and all of the loot box stuff happened after I left. So can't really speak to that specifically, but I will say that having worked a lot on the Star Wars mobile game, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, the community managers are really sensitive and oh man, this is going to be really controversial. Star Wars fans.
I think you got it right there.
They tend to be a little sensitive, and I think there might be a little bit of underestimation on a lot of the community and the internal people's part about how much people care about their Star Wars, how mobilized an angry Star Wars fan can be. And I think, to answer your question, I think that they are being, this is just speculation, but I think they're being extremely careful. You know, looking at the backlash at The Last Jedi, like, there are a lot of angry Star Wars fans out there, and there's not a whole lot that anyone can say that won't really, like, create more bad buzz of some kind. So if I had to speculate, there won't, like, yeah, they're going to definitely bring microtransactions back, and, you know, they said they would, and it's way too costly of a game for them to not try to make money off of it eventually, but it's going to be very different. It's probably going to, my guess is that it'll probably be tied to a major DLC launch, that they'll create some completely new progression system as part of it. They'll rebrand it, they'll relaunch it, and it will hopefully take on a kind of second life and like a second launch.
Because we know how the private marketplace in Second Life turned out.
Fair enough. That's my speculation.
So the reason I wanted to grab you up here is also because, I don't know if you guys know, but there are possible ramifications that are often not seen necessarily as a consumer. With all this loot box stuff, you've seen politicians like, I forget the guy's name, but the fellow in Hawaii who was like, oh, we got to legislate against these things, all this. Once again, it allows games to possibly be a whipping boy for politicians, but also if we decide that non-saleable digital goods, if we decide that like the contents of loot box have real world value, there's a lot of ramifications for that. Do you want to talk about any of the possible things that roll out of that?
Totally, that's great. Yeah, so, and I'll also probably just throw in speculating that there's probably a lawsuit already in the works. When people are angry enough, they will file lawsuits, they'll say gambling, they will, you know, do all that kind of stuff. The ramifications if loot boxes are considered gambling are really serious, and they aren't, the implications aren't just for the developers. One thing that kind of gets overlooked a lot is that these are criminal statutes. In some jurisdictions, you know, encouraging gambling, participating in gambling, meaning the players themselves would be complicit in a crime and could face jail time. So that's a big deal, and you can be sure that that anything that EA does at this point, or any game developer does now, they're going to be really concerned about crossing any legal lines that would, and so to get to your point, the thing that is keeping this from being called, you know, gambling under the legal definition is that you can't cash out. That's the argument that is constantly thrown around. You will be hard pressed to have any game in the next year have a cash out economy.
Which, I mean, I think in some ways is good, but I think that there's even more than that, because if we somehow define legally that the objects in non-cash outable loot boxes have real world value, what happens when I need to go shut down a server for a game I made, right?
Right. People make those arguments now.
Yeah.
And people, anytime a game gets shut down, or even if you know, a user gets banned and they want to protest the ban, they say, well, I've spent, you know, $300 in this game, you need to give me a refund. And that's when those end user license agreements that nobody reads come into play. And yeah, if the virtual items start to have real world value, that completely changes the nature of the economy and the relationship that you have with the developer.
Well, and my understanding is how defensible that EULA is as well. Like,
yeah.
because if those legally have real world value, the person claiming, oh, I spent $300 on this has a much stronger claim than right now, where several times in court people have actually brought suits along those lines. And it's always been ruled that digital goods do not have real world value. And you have to remember, this goes beyond loot boxes, right? Like, if you've ever killed a monster in an RPG, especially an MMORPG, right? It's not just loot boxes, it's anything that you have loot, right? Because it's the exact same system. A monster is a loot box, it's just not one that you pay for by a microtransaction. It's one that you pay for by a subscription or whatever other mechanism. And so if we start saying digital goods have real world value, there's a whole plethora of stuff that it just opens up that I worry will have negative impacts on what actually gets developed for us as players. And so we have to tread this one very carefully. That's not to say, not in any way defending what has gone on or saying that like loot boxes are good. I don't think that they're necessarily bad. I think in this case they were very poorly implemented, but I think before we just table flip and say we need to condemn these, like call out the politicians, we need to think about exactly what it's going to cost to do so.
Thank you.
Mine's a lot less highbrow than that.
All right. Cade, this one looks like it's going to be you.
Not exactly. So James, in 2015, you were the keynote speaker for GameFest at RPI.
Oh, yes.
And you gave this fantastic speech that helped one extremely tired and jaded game dev student keep giving a shit about making games. So thank you for that.
I come to this as, like, I remember that day and I was exhausted, so to hear it did some good. Like,
cool.
I was right there with you, and
cool.
I'm really happy to hear that it did some good.
Now, gun to my head, I don't exactly remember what that speech was about, but
you remember it had Final Fantasy music.
It worked because I have a job in the industry now, so
yes.
Thanks, man. None of that is a question, but the thing that's bugged me ever since that happened was, did RPI do right by you? Because, like, I've always kind of worried about that as a student who went there.
Oh.
Like, the game dev department is always fantastic by all of us, but, like, the administration there can be a little hinky sometimes, and I always worried that, like, you might have been roughed up by him.
I don't remember, honestly.
That's probably good.
My life is so chaotic at this point that there are other people who handle, like, all my billing and that sort of thing, because
right on.
I just, as much as it's kind of lame, like, there are better things to do than fight with the administration over, like, getting my airplane flight refunded or whatever. And so I hope so, and if nothing else, it was worth going regardless of whether or not I got financially screwed, because it doesn't matter, right? Like, you're here right now, and that's actually what matters from it.
Thank you.
Well done, by the way.
Hi. Am I allowed to ask a history question, or is this like...
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, sick.
History, sci-fi, stuff about YouTube, whatever you want. I may pitch stuff to them, but you can ask me if you want.
So I am a history major, and I was wondering if there was any cultural movement in North America that you feel was really important and really impactful, but doesn't get enough credit.
Oh, there's a ton. Unfortunately, most of them for me, or plenty of them are after the cutoff. For those of you guys who watch Extra History, I sort of have this belief that it takes about 100 years to have a decent historical perspective on anything. So roughly 1920 is sort of the cutoff for where we do our... What's the end of what we do with Extra History unless we're working specifically with a sponsor who has experts in that area?
On the bright side, in 3 years, that goes up.
Right.
Even if it's not an episode.
Just every decade.
Yeah.
We just round to the nearest
Yeah,
decade.
you
I
go.
like this. We should just round to the nearest century. It'd be good. Yeah. So, what do you guys think? Are there any social movements that you guys super dig that you'd love to see in Extra History?
Art, whatever, social, it doesn't matter. Go nuts.
So I think the suffrage movement is obviously
Yep.
is a huge one. I think the union movement is a huge one. I think you can talk about a lot of later movements, but I'm going to avoid going past 1920-ish. I mean, I know the union movement is right on that line. Obviously, the abolition movement was an enormous one, and so I would say any of those. And then the super underlooked one in American history is revival, right? Like, for those of you who don't know, there are several periods, but especially like in the 1800s, America has this weird curve of religious fervor where we hit periods of religious fervor, and there was this period called the Revival where that's where you get all the great American preachers, sort of the iconic preacher that you think of out on the frontier stump, like shouting hellfire with his Bible. But it actually has a huge impact on both the American psyche and sort of the history of America. So that'd be the more obscure one that I'd say as well. Okay. What about you?
60s counterculture.
So that's what I was going to say. And then
It's
of course,
it's out of scope.
well, and you'd have to go civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Obviously, would be another huge one. But again, and then I'd love to do the beats. But that's all past there. But thank you. That's an awesome question.
Yeah, thank you for answering.
I am also a big fan of extra history because as a former history major, it hits on a lot of historical things that I didn't care about as a student that as soon as I see an extra history video, I'm like, oh, I should have paid attention to that, shouldn't I have? You're always right.
Or they should have taught it better.
Yes, I actually believe in that fully. So, just so you guys all know, they should have done it with awesome art. So you know, when we started doing extra history, it was because I went to a lot of school districts and I would talk to them about how we've learned a lot of things from games that can be used to make history more engaging. And not making games around it, but just ideas about pacing, about all this stuff that we've learned from games and movies. And every time they were like, oh, that sounds awesome, that sounds great. We need a test case or we can't do anything with it. So I was like, all right, fine. I will just do it myself. And then, of course, we started working with the folks at Creative Assembly, got some scripts together, got amazing art, and
we got Will.
What was that?
And we got Will eventually. We got Will from Creative Assembly.
Will?
We got Will. He's the Twitch guy.
Yes, not for extra history though. But we did eventually acquire
Yes.
Will. You're right. That's the first time I ever interacted with Will. You're absolutely right. That is a good historical point for an extra credits history.
It didn't take place in the 20s, so it doesn't count.
Right, it's past the 20s. It's just not. So for those of you guys who have ever seen our Twitch stream, which we started recently, the community manager from Creative Assembly who helped fund the first episode of Extra History is now our Twitch streamer. So just so you know. But there's a bunch of things that we have. I mean, I've got sort of a best practices list about, you'll notice there are not a lot of proper nouns. We try and avoid proper nouns. We try and avoid dates. I use dates as anchoring so you kind of know when this is and when relative. But we don't fill it with dates because these things are not fundamental to history. They're not the things that are going to inform us about our present lives. And they're not the lens through which we can better understand or think about what's going on today. And to me, that's the most important part of history. And so I think there are a lot of things that we can do, like you were saying, to actually teach history better and differently.
On a different YouTube video, this one sadly dearly departed. This one I think is for the whole panel, anyone who wants to answer it, but it's only on topic. James, what do you recommend?
I mean, my easy current recommendation is Gorogoa. Like, that's a pretty easy go-to. If you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. It's like 3 hours long. It's some of the most interestingly intuitive, hand-drawn sort of puzzle, zero-word story games out there. So I think I would go with Gorogoa. Obviously, They Are Billions I have to poke at some more. And what else have I been playing of late? God, there's so much stuff, but I'll stick to those two, so I don't monopolize any. What have you guys been playing that you'd like recommend?
So, people close to me at MAGFest have heard me going on about this one. Since you are all here, the one game I recommend everyone here plays is Killer Queen.
Yes.
Yes. It is a 5 versus 5 arcade cabinet that is in the arcade hall. It has controls a lot like Joust. There are class roles. You have a queen, you have workers. The workers can upgrade to soldiers. You can kill the queen, you can collect berries, or you ride a snail to victory. There's different winning conditions. It is a very hard to come by arcade cabinet. They've only made like a dozen of these things or so. It is criminal. So you are all in a very unique opportunity to play it, and I highly recommend you get some friends and play it. Killer Queen.
Killer Queen.
It is 5 versus 5. It's got 2 screens. It's over by the Japanese music games, the Pop and Music arcade cabinets.
I'd probably say Golf Story. I hate golf as a sport, but you put a video game
But
with
you love it as a narrative.
Yeah, like no, really, it's a fantastic game. Like
remove the dates and the proper nouns.
Right.
It's a fantastic game with like it's got a very goofy narrative with a very light like the overall world just feels very serene. Like the fact that there's a wind is an actual gameplay mechanic because it's golf. Like the wind will actually blow the foliage and whatnot. And what's really neat is for me as an animator, like they very clearly did not have a budget to give like a full range of animations like in something like Owlboy where they just poured their souls into it. And they make up for it with the speech bubbles. Like, I've never seen a game with more expressive speech bubbles, which is a weird thing to say, but like if somebody's feeling dejected or something, they'll say something like, I didn't mean that, and then their speech bubble will just fall on their side, like in defeat, because everyone around them is an idiot. It's just, it's a fun, like it's a very good game. It's a very neat, like, especially if you're working with a budget, it's a neat little way to, it's a neat perspective on how to
get the most from very little.
Get the most from very little, especially as far as expressiveness goes. It's a very good game. It's on, I think it's only on Switch, which
that doesn't seem like it could be true.
I think it is.
It's not on Steam?
But it's very good. I think it's $15. I highly recommend it.
I really recommend Valhalla, the cyberpunk bartending action game. That's my serious, and that's like my game recommendation. But on a more serious note, Valhalla was the last game that I played like seriously like this past year. I have spent so much time not playing games and just being so caught up in work and in life. And so, and like even like I'm cosplaying Persona 5, I have not finished the 3rd dungeon in Persona 5. Like that's how little I've been playing this year. And so maybe this doesn't really apply to people here because like this is pretty like gamer focused event and all that jazz. But like if it's something that's important to you, like take time to do it. And like I actually have a New Year's resolution now of like I need to play a game that's not Pocket Camp on my phone, like at least like a couple times like every week this year, because like I've just kind of been so caught up in working about games and working on games and stuff like that that I kind of don't really have time to play anymore. So that's my serious advice, is to make time to discover and learn and try out new games that you don't think that you would like trying.
You played anything awesome recently?
Yeah. All right, well, first I'll do the plug for Ubisoft. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. It's actually really good.
I would do that one. You're allowed to do that one.
I was like, I've never been like super into XCOM, but like having it be simple and easy and fun and like you can do it on the bus, I really enjoyed it.
And the rabbits are the best part.
Yeah, they're actually like they're funny.
I have the Princess Peach rabbit figure. I'm gonna go get the others eventually.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're so good.
Gets you swag. Also, the non-Ubisoft one, it's probably old news. I think most people have played it here, but Doki Doki Literature Club. It's free and you have nothing to lose. It's so much fun.
Every single day I check the YouTube comments and someone's like, have you heard of Doki Doki Literature Club? Have you heard about this game? It's a surprise. No one knows what it is. And I keep getting comments about this like every day, and I'm like, yes, we have heard of this.
It's 2017's Undertale.
It's my fault. So the Halloween episode, I had written it, and like I had written it and handed off the script like a week before Doki Doki Literature Club came out. And so our Halloween episode came out without Doki Doki Literature Club in it. And I was like, oh. And so now every week Belinda has to deal with somebody who's now gone seen that video and went, they don't know about Doki Doki Literature Club.
Now you know.
All right, so do we have this room till 10 or till 11? We got... Well, do we have the forum till 12? How long do we have this room? What was that? We have it for 10 more minutes? All right, we're going to try and rapid fire these, and then honestly, anyone who wants to can migrate to the forum, and then it becomes much more of a real conversation, and we will answer everything and talk about all the things. So yes, go for it.
Hi.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. The question I had was in regard to game design, not necessarily just video games, also tabletop games, in regards to character progression. What role do you think that numbers play in character progression, like the elevation of numbers to show that your character has improved somewhat, like say raising strength or dexterity, things like that? Do you think that we're kind of moving away from that, like instead moving towards giving people more verbs or items to use, or do you think they still have a role to play?
I think it's different for different games. I think that if the game is about numeric progression, which is a valid, not a type of game that I like to play any longer, but man, when I was 14, I did love to play the RPGs that were grindy, right? And those are fundamentally about seeing numbers go up, to about feeling progress. And numbers are one of the easiest ways to see a very linear progress. If it's not about that, I'm glad that we're finally in a place where we do have other avenues to show progress, including verbs, including whole or sort of orthogonal paths of character growth. And so that allows us to build whole new types of games that are substantially different, interesting in different ways, and that address different emotional sets, which I think is super important. But that doesn't invalidate numbers to me. There's just a different place for them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, thanks.
All right, rapid.
All right. So you guys have been making extra credits for a very long time now. I think what 10 plus years.
I think it was like, yeah. If we look at the very first one, I think it's like 9 years now.
But given how much has changed in the game industry and all of the culture around gaming in that time, are there any older episodes that you really wish you could go back and update because new things have come out that you want to talk about, and why?
Can you guys tell me any older episodes that are just awful? As you two confess. Oh, we actually haven't watched the back catalog.
What's extra credits?
Right.
I actually remember because I was watching some of the old like Q&A videos back when like you could actually answer like fan mail without it being overwhelming. And there's a video where like where like someone asks something about esports and like the answer is sort of like, esports like might be a thing, and this is like what 2011 or something, and it was just like very kind of like chilled out.
Thing is, I don't think they're a thing yet. Like I mean, I know that's going to be a weird, controversial statement, but to all of us, they're a thing. But you go outside and like ask a random person sitting in one of those bars out there.
Street Fighter on ESPN. What?
Right, like, but ask any of those to tell you the name of a Counter-Strike team.
Yeah.
And nobody can do it, right? Yeah. Ask anybody out there to tell you the name of a football team, and everybody can name a football team, right? And until we actually get to the point where it exceeds just our community and becomes a national thing, I don't think esports are a thing yet, actually. Like, I actually am not convinced we're there yet. I don't think we can be there until anyone can watch them who has never played the game and actually enjoy the experience. But I think that revisiting it now and saying that again would give you a lot more work to do.
Yes. I feel if Dan was here, he would have quite a few things to say about what episodes. It's jarring. Obviously, the art is different because Allison is not on the team, and we've made changes. But it's jarring listening to how Dan sounds, even. Just how his voice has changed, and how his mannerisms have changed. He's learned to talk. But yeah.
I can't think of one that like necessarily needs like to be, I guess, updated. But like I think fighting games as a whole is something that I don't think any of us in the crew really has the mindset for it. But I think it's something we don't expand on the same way we do with like MMOs or adventure games or RPGs.
You know, we desperately need to do one on sports games, and I actually pick up half the sports titles every year just to like keep touch with where things are at, but
nerds.
Right, it's not my genre of choice, and so, but we do desperately. There are a huge number of missions there. Like to this day, everybody asks, "Are you going to run out of extra credits episodes?" And I'm like, every time I think so, then like I go to a conference and I'm like, "Oh, we have 70 more episodes at least to write." As far as the old episodes that need updates, we talked about the future of MMOs. Some of that came true, some of it did not. I would love to redo that one and just talk about it again. We did one on sexuality in games. I don't want to redo, but I think that we need to do again because we've made some progress and in other places we haven't. And let's see, what else? What are other ones that...
Oh, I have a question for you, James.
Yeah.
So I still get, because one of our most popular all-time ever videos is the one about Sesame Credit in China. And we still get lots of comments on there from people who are like, oh, like, this was using like incorrect sources, or like this proved out to like not be true or whatever. And I'm sure you've heard all this, so this is not new to you, but like, is there anything in that episode that you would want to redo now with like any additional information that may have come to light?
So what I'm hoping, I will actually be in a PBS documentary on Sesame Credit coming out sometime in the next year. Hopefully, they've, being PBS, dug into it a lot more, and I would love to be able to point people to that and say, look at these people who did way more like digging than I did, because it is hard to get accurate information. And I'll be honest with all you guys, I believe that they are, from everything I read, they're actually trying to do Sesame Credit. I don't know if it will be as insidious or was, it's hard to get that many people to competently do something that insidious, right? But it was very important that we talk about it at the time to hopefully prevent it from really becoming a thing or becoming more of a thing in more places, right? But yeah, that's one that I would love to find more sources on and go back on. God, what else? What other ones? Oh, we probably should move on. Let's continue this. On the way to forum, I will think of some more answers, because there's a ton that I'm sure that I need to go back and look at again. Oh, and then I think there was a Games You Might Not Have Tried where I recommended Ark Survival Evolved. I would have taken that back. Yeah, no question. Like, but yes. All right. So we're all moving to forum, and then we will answer all of these. Keep your questions in mind, because we will talk about all of them. And yeah, Majors Forum.
Thank you all for coming.